We have those down at the back there at hall passes, just like hall monitors. But right now we'll be able to start a few minutes early since everyone is in here and seated. We have Sal Atinello and Todd Chamberlain to talk about how to display your collection.
Hi everybody, my name is Sal Atinello. Can you all hear me all right?
Yeah.
Alright, I tend to talk a little fast. If I talk too fast for everybody, so you can yell and tell me to slow down, okay? We're going to talk about displaying your collection. As I said, Sal Atinello, and this is
Todd Chamberlain.
I'm going to discuss my part first, and then Todd's going to take over with some examples of some recent collections that we've run across. So why don't we just jump right on in. Who here has been collecting Star Wars since you were young, since the very original trilogy? Alright, for all of you guys, you'll relate to this real easily. My displaying collection journey started way back when I sent in my purchase and I got my little action figure stand from Kenner, and it finally came in the mail. Me, 12-year-old, actually got a package in the mail. So I ripped it out of my mother's hands as she tried to hand it to me, tore open the box, set it up. I already had the space on my shelf, cleaned off, no dust, nothing. Put it up there, put all my action figures on that stand. Every day I play with them, and every day they go right back on that stand. Not only did I realize that I had a little OCD back then, but that was when I started realizing that I liked to display my collection. I like to display it nicely. So what I have here for you is just some tips and tricks on how to display a collection nicely without breaking the bank, because we all need more money to buy more Star Wars collections, right? Okay, what and where? First thing you need to do is determine, what am I going to display? Is my collection mainly art? Is my collection action figures? Is my collection of life-size Pepsi-Cola advertisements that I have down in the basement? Determine what you're going to display. Also determine where you're going to display this. Do you have a room that you have dedicated to your Star Wars collection? Is it just going to be a wall inside of a room for your collection? Are you like Steve Santos? You have an entire building that you can have a mini Rancho Obi-Wan? Those are key questions you have to ask yourself. This will help determine what you're going to display, how you're going to display it, and what tools you might need to display it.
And a lot of times people find that, once they determine that space that they're going to use to display things, it ends up shaping the way that you collect.
So again, the what and where. Consider the size of the items you're displaying. If you're displaying postcards or celebration pins that you've been collecting around here, you don't really need a huge display case to display those items in. Consider when your items have a theme. It's always great to have a theme when you're displaying your collection. It doesn't have to all be an obvious theme, but some kind of theme with all R2D2 stuff, all of your Christmas stuff, all your Hamilton plate collection, all of your action figures, all of your Luke Skywalker action figures. Those are some different examples of themes you want to use. And consider the size of the space that you can commit to your display. If you can only commit one bookcase in your one room, you don't want to go out and have 5 different, have enough stuff to fill 5 different bookcases. You want to have just enough stuff in that one bookcase. Tools for display. This is nice. And when I mean by tools, I don't mean a hammer or a saw. I mean cases. We all wish that we could get these really nice commercial display cases with the lights that shine down and spotlight each individual piece. But that just doesn't happen. But there are places where you can get cases. You want to make sure you get the right case for what you need. If you're displaying art, you want frames that will fit the piece of art you have. If you're displaying action figures, you don't need to get a big commercial display case. You can go to Michael's or any craft store and get this small action figure display cases. You can go online and get the star cases. If if you're going to display action figures. You want to make sure you use the right tools for the job. Using the proper tools will do many things for your display. Number one, or for your collection map. Number one, it's going to help it display nicely. You can have a really nice display case, and if you can set up your pieces in it with room, so that they're nice and clean and separated, it's going to look a lot nicer. Again, you want to try to maintain a theme. Make sure all of your R2D2 are together in one case. Make sure if you're going to maybe have all your Christmas items in one case. Whatever you're going to use, if you use a case or a frame or a shadow box, try to keep everything within that case or shadow box the same theme. Bigger or more is not always better. So if you're from Texas, I want you to get this and understand it. Just because you have a nice big display case does not mean that you should cram everything you own into that nice big display case. You want to make sure your items are separated. You want to make sure they're highlighted. You want everybody that comes over to your house to say, "Oh my God, I didn't know you had that. Where did you get that?" And they're not going to be able to see it if you cram everything into that display case. You don't have to break the bank. This is the big one. This is what I'm the most passionate about. You do not have to go and buy brand new retail display cases or go to Ethan and Allen and buy brand new China hutches or cases from them. You just got to think outside the box a little bit. Try a yard sale. Try Craigslist. I'll tell you guys what, I've been on Craigslist. I have found more nice retail commercial display cabinets out there for a song than anywhere else. You just have to be patient. You have to think outside the box. You can get nice display pieces. You just have to go out there and look for them. It requires a little bit of work. Here's a nice example that I had found where somebody displayed a wall art. They didn't want to go crazy with it. They wanted to display art that they knew. It only took one wall to display it. And if you look here, the thing that really strikes me about this collection, all the frames are black. And they all sort of tie in there. It's one theme. It's all Agro-Akbar. The fact that the frames are different sizes, they're mounted differently on the wall, adds to the allure too. But all the frames are black, and the theme is Agro-Akbar. Here's another one that I really liked. This guy didn't have a lot of space that he could commit to his Star Wars collection, so he took what looks like a pantry space and converted it into a place for his vintage collection. What made it really nice is that he used glass shelves that lets the light come down so you can see everything. Everything's not thrown in there and crammed up against each other. They're spread out nice. There's nice lighting. You use glass shelves to spread the light out. A really good job in very confined space. Here's another good example of theme and of using glass shelves to help spread the light. Obviously, this theme is R2D2. And even though it's just glass shelves up on a wall, it looks really nice. Here's another collection where they're committing the whole room to the collection. Obviously, it's a vintage collection. The thing that strikes me about this room that I wanted to bring everyone's attention is number one, the display cabinets. Okay? They may be a little bit on the higher end side, but they're all the same. That really makes it look good. All the display cabinets are the same make. You'll see that none of the items in the display cabinets are shoved together. They're not just thrown in there. The theme here is all vintage. It's a vintage collection. You got good lighting here. But again, it's just a small area. It's a small room. Here's a couple of examples that I want to show you from my collection. Okay, you can see the picture on the left of the screen. That's before I well, that was the picture I made to give you guys an example of a bad, really cluttered kind of display cabinet. You can see all the ships down the bottom. There really isn't a very good theme there. Everything's just kind of shoved in there. Once I cleaned it out, I have everything separated, everything spotlighted. It looks a lot better. You can see everything that's in there now. And here's another example that I gave you on the left. This is a bad example. Sorry, that was a little blurred. But this is, the theme is the holidays. This is all the holiday hallmark and stuff. On the left, it's very cluttered. I tried to fit every ornament I own in that cabinet. Didn't work out very well. So I said, well, what's important? He said, well, the signature series is important, plus a couple of the ones that I like the best. So I took everything out, and on the right-hand side, you can see just the signature series ornaments are in there. A couple others that I like, maybe a couple of the newer ones that I just bought this year, just to showcase them. But by having fewer pieces, they all stand out. And here's the great part about not breaking the bank. This is a picture I'm actually very proud of. There is not one display piece in that picture that I paid over $20 for. The frames I got on sale, just look for your sales, 50% off on the frames. I paid $10 a piece for them. The two end pieces, $5 each at a yard sale, those are CD, DVD holders. I just repurposed them for this. That display case, okay, this display case didn't come off Craigslist, so sorry about praising Craigslist so much. This one I actually found at a thrift store, $20. Now I did have to paint the inside, I had clean glass, but $20, that's all I paid for it. Here are some other good examples. On the left there, we have one display cabinet, $50 on Craigslist. I found it just before coming out here to C6. Over on the right side, $125 on Craigslist. It's a little fancier, but still, that's reasonable. On the left, $15 on Craigslist. On the right is my Hallmark display, $10 at Swap Meet. It was really a gross brown. I painted it black. You just got to think outside the box. You know, you can find these deals, display your collection very nicely. Just think outside the box. Do-it-yourselfers. How many out there think that they are do-it-yourselfers and you like to fix things around the house? You guys got a head start on doing some nice collectible display cabinets. Here's something I made. Now, ignore the little starter story in there. My son took a welding class and he thought he was going to make his dad proud and did the starter story. That was good. Oh, that's the response I was looking for. So what I did was we went back to the garage and I took a scrap piece of lumber and I took some acrylic I had in there, just cut some acrylic squares, glued them together. The whole thing cost me maybe $10 in pieces. In the store that would sell for $50 if you go to Micah's and try to buy this blanket that size. Here's the cabinet I made. You wouldn't believe it, but under that cabinet there's a fireplace. I live in California, Southern California. Why there's a fireplace in this house, I don't know. And the fireplace is over in the corner of the wall. So it was just dead space. I couldn't really do anything with it. So I built this custom cabinet, put it over the fireplace, and now I have a vintage cabinet. Is it perfect? No. Like I said, it's not eBay out of quality, but it works. It was relatively easy to do, and it didn't break the bank. And I can display my vintage items very nicely. Finally, keep it fresh. And I'm not going to get all crazy and young on you guys because I'm not a young guy. But what I mean by keep it fresh is kind of like what the grocery stores mean by keep it fresh. They rotate. Everything gets rotated in my collection. I'll take the stuff out of one cabinet, put it away, put new stuff in there. Keeping it fresh, it does a bunch of things to help your collection. You rotate your displayed items. Move items from one display to another. Take items out and pack them up, put the other ones in there. Rearrange the room setup. If you've devoted a room to your Star Wars collection, you can always go in there and take one display cabinet from one wall, put it on the other side of the room. Change things around, see how that works for you. Over time, this stuff will allow you to display your entire collection. It'll keep your friends guessing as to what's going to come up next. They'll never know the entirety of your collection, which will keep the mystery about you. How much does this guy really have? Oh, I don't know. We got to move and find out. And by changing things up, by moving things around, by rotating your items in your collection, it's like redecorating without all the cost. Right? So that's a lot of fun as well. And that might also help keep the significant others in their lives off your back. And at this point, I want you all to remember, size matters not. It doesn't matter if you can devote an entire room to your collection, if you can devote the entire basement, or even if you've got just a wall, just one cabinet. Anybody can display their collection, whether great or small, without breaking the bank, and display it nicely so that you can be very proud of it. And you can show your pride in your collection to your friends.
Okay, can you hear me fine? Say yes. Yes. All right, thank you. So, to be honest, when I told a few of my friends who live in Indianapolis where I live now that I was going to do a presentation on displaying your collection, I got some kind of shocked looks because frankly, for the last few years, my place looks a little bit more like an end scene of Raiders of the Lost Ark. It's a bit warehouses, and we've been in the process of getting ready to move and possibly put our house up for sale, so things have been kind of just boxed out. But really the focus of my section of presentation is on the collections that people we had a collector showcase where collectors from around the world submitted photos of the way that they displayed their things, and so I'm going to highlight some of the examples that Sal had came from that as well. So just to talk about some of the themes that I saw in the submissions there that were kind of the reasons why Jared Clark and Ron Seller, Thor, and I picked those pieces out and why we thought those were nice to be collection. So Arturo Juarez, he gets into that idea of a focus collection. He's really into R2. And so that idea that I talked about earlier, that once you have a space where you're going to collect things, that it does in some ways end up, it's a mutually shaping thing. Your collection shapes the space, but the space kind of helps you decide, well, this is something I want, this is something I don't want. But he's got a pretty intense collection. It's just one room of his R2 collection. Toru Kimura has another focus collection. You can see on the ceiling area. So Sal's focus was on kind of more a budget approach to things. Toru really went all out. You can see he took an entire room in his house. He has that R2 themed paint on the ceiling. So it's pretty intense with the lighting and all that. Has this nice rug. I really like this idea of a glass top coffee table where you can actually sit there and use the space. And I've been in some people's homes where you can actually in their living room they've got something like this, and that way it's something you can enjoy every day. Personally, my wife doesn't like to enjoy the Star Wars. She loves Star Wars. She likes to collect them. She doesn't like to enjoy them every day. But if if you've got, if in your family, that's a cool thing to do. I have a lot of ideas for displaying my collection long term that probably aren't going to happen in the broader home. But anyway, I really like the whole copy slash top copy table idea. So here's the focus collection, Alonzo's collection of Mexican items. You have the Lily Lady doll. I guess there's I think everything in this picture, for the most part, is Mexican, except actually I'm just noticing the Japanese, I guess. Vader there, I'm not sure. Maybe the Stormtrooper. I'm not sure what that's from, but anyway, for the most part, Alonzo's collection is really heavily focused on the Mexican items, and so I think that's it. You know, some people end up you buy things over time and you just kind of put it wherever you have space. But I think if you can be intentional, because on one hand, it seems like a simple thing, like, oh, display things together. But in practice, I've seen a lot of collections, and so you just got to be able to kind of put things out as they get them, and I'll move things. And I think if you be intentional over time, and the idea that Sal talked about rotating things, and to me, that's what keeps. I've been collecting nonstop since '78. I mean, there's not been, like, I went through all the dark years in the late 80s and kept on doing it. And it's interesting to me to hear people on some of the online forums, people will talk about, boy, I collected this, really hardcore for 2 years or 3 years, and you kind of, people thought of it, wow, that's a really hardcore intense collector, and then they start talking about, oh, I'm burned out, or, kind of fading on things. And to me, even though I haven't had the opportunity to really display some, I feel like I had a pretty nice display back when I lived in Philadelphia a few years back. I've had some people comment on that. But the ability to see your things and the ability to kind of keep changing and the idea of rotating things, those are things that keep the hobby fresh. And I guess just to be a little bit separate from the displaying piece of that, some advice in terms of collector burnout, that, because I've talked numerous times, the threads kind of come up online, and people say, boy, I've done this for 5 years, 2 years, or however long it is, and I think I'm done. And some people, I mean, that may be just where they go, but the idea of putting things away, and whether it's one segment of your collection or your whole collection, don't just go and, because some people will build up a focus, for example, they'll build up a big R2 collection, they'll say, oh, I'm tired of this, I'm going to sell it. But then I'll hear 2 years later, oh, I'm so sorry I sold that R2 collection. And so my recommendation would be, in terms of burnout, that just, you spend a lot of time on that. Put it away, and either don't have anything out, or put something different out. And then look at it 6 months later, or a year later. And if you open it 6 months or a year later, and you still say, I just don't care, then maybe it's time to do something different. But I think a lot of people have found that when they do that, things become fresh again. So Don Henderson has he collects plush items, and so this whole case is a variety of unproduced concepts and prototypes and weird color variations from Hasbro and some other lines in there. And so I thought that was I think it's a pretty unique focus. I know a couple people that collect plush. But Don's got a little more intense collections in that way. Don Raskin, the Stormtrooper, he's got this whole room with these cases. IKEA, if you're close to an IKEA is a good place to buy loan cases. The majority of people I know that buy brand new cases, that's what they do. But I also would recommend doing what Sal did in terms of trying to find local sources, both for display cases, and one thing, if you collect posters, I found having a flat file cabinet where you can store posters flat, not have to keep them rolled, makes it easier to access. And because a lot of places that used to have blueprints and things like that as physical form, and been getting rid of them in recent years, there actually are some pretty good deals out there. If you use Craigslist or do local eBay, we can get things for a flat file cabinet new $500, but you can get one for $7,500. So, Trilogy Architectural Details. Dave Silva took a large building that he had on his property and he added this Millennium Falcon themed window. I thought it was a pretty cool accent there. See a lot of, y'all hold this one. your camera's clicking, yeah. That was So we got the lighting, Roberto's got the lighting details there off to the side. I've seen that done several times, but I always like that. All right, so simple layouts. You know, I collect a lot of different things, and so sometimes it gets hard to, you want to see a lot of different stuff. But I really think the idea of just picking, so even if you have a bigger collection, just picking a few things that you really like. The quality over quantity, and quality not necessarily in terms of value, but just quality in terms of things that you really like. And this gets back to that idea of shaping the way you collect. That if you decide, you know what, I really like the way, I like my collection better if I can just see a few pieces, and the pieces I really like stand out. Instead of buying those pieces, you just, you know, yeah, that's a cool thing, I'll put that out there, but then it attracts attention to the pieces that really give you a lot of delight. So, you know, Ronnie's got the example Admiral Akbar pieces, and it's something that, you know, he's able to really highlight the things that are cool in his collection. So, you know, here are a couple other different series of prototype pieces that he has. So, Gary Wines has got a similar sort of just really clean layout. He's gone the AFA grading route and had them make the cases, but the clean white background in this case can just really, you know, highlight those particular items. There's 3 packs. Little collection of the minifigures. I thought this was cool, the guitars. I mean, this is part of, there's a lot of other things in this room, but, you know, you can really just take a space and say, okay, I'm going to, rather than cramming a bunch of other things around where you wouldn't really notice it, say, like, they really stand out. So, display cases, and I'll go back to Robert Sharp, because I think this is very much, I think, along the lines of what I see myself doing again when I'm in a longer term space. To me, having things in cases with glass fronts like that, there's our archival kind of protection piece that keeps the dust off, saves on housekeeping with the dusting. But I just think it really kind of tidies things up, and it's kind of like framing a picture. It helps things stand out. A couple more examples of that. He also found vintage wallpaper. It's a little bit hard to find unused rolls, but they are out there. So he actually, I think it took him a while to scrounge enough different pieces, but to actually do that, I think the artwork on that is beautiful. There's another example here of Ronnie with his glass cases, and I'm pretty sure these are IKEA cases.
Yeah.
So Mark has got some built-in cabinets in his basement, and as they're just has a heavy Admiral Akbar focus in his collection. So creative materials. I thought this was really cool. It's this white foam, like inserts for packaging electronic stuff, and especially he's got a couple different environments here, but they're you know, if you're doing like a hot theme thing, I mean, just like cheap you can get out of the package that you buy. So overview shot of that. Supplies. So I wasn't able to format this, but it was like in the presentation. But Josh Ling and I did a presentation a couple of years ago on both display and storing your collection. And we put together a list of vendors that both, Josh really used to be Steve Sand Sweet's archivist, and so had done all the buying of supplies for him and things that I had found for my work. I updated this list. So you can either, if you aren't able to get a photo, you can talk here afterward, and I can give you my email address to buy. I uploaded this file to my website so that anybody can go there and download it. They're about, I think there are probably just 30 different vendors on there. Anything from cheap places for picture frames. If you want to go, locally, you go to Michael's, but there's a place called Hollywood Picture Frame that they'll actually ship frame kits out to you, and they're especially good for if you have oversized posters, because a lot of times Michael's is pretty expensive for those kinds of things, but whether it's bags or different display cases, and it has both ideas for things, just everyday kind of bags and boxes up to high-end archival supplies if you really want to go that full route. So that is it for our formal presentation. Are there any questions that people have?
When you've got figures that are carded, and you go to put the case up, they tend to want to fall forward. Do you wedge something under there, or what do you do to keep that from happening?
Yeah, I don't tend to. I'm still an old school bag and board kind of guy. My whole collection is still, I'm going to go back and forth with the bag. So I don't care about that.
Well, it depends on how I'm hanging it on the wall. Usually, if it's in a star case and I'm putting it up on the wall, I try not to hang any action figure by itself. What I actually did, I went to IKEA and I got for $10. I got another one of those CD, DVD holders, and it's in itself is supposed to mount on the wall vertically. I mounted it horizontally, and I put action figures in star cases in that. Yeah, and then I lift the door and put it in there, and it'll hold. Right now, I've got all of my exclusive action figures in those. So I've got my C4, my C5 action figures. I Hasbro had back then.
So when they're in the cases, it keeps them from falling out, right?
Right. Yeah. And that's how I do it.
Thanks.
Yes.
What kind of lighting do you recommend, and how do you avoid like sunspeed?
I use LEDs. LED lighting in all my cabinets. And for the pictures as well. Any pictures I have hanging on the wall, I'll throw an LED spot on it.
How much do they run?
Yeah, in terms of sunlight, definitely, I guess that the ideal is just that you don't have sunlight in the space. And if it's a room where you want them to have the option, if you've got the shades open, 2 hours a day, it's not going to be a problem if you look. I basically say keep a very dark curtain. And it really needs to be, I found in one room that even having a curtain that lets basically any light through whatsoever, you can get some UV filter from Lowe's or Home Depot to put on there, and that's helpful. But I said, even with a dark curtain, but it wasn't just completely opaque, I still found something got fading over time. So if that's an important view, I would really just try to totally block out those windows.
Yeah.
What do you recommend for dust, particularly with open items?
For open items, a display case is pretty critical for that. And definitely, if you've got pets, then you can try to keep pets out of it. It just depends on, everyone has to make their lifestyle choices about, if you've got pets, you don't want to just get rid of your pets in your collection. But I would try to keep them out of that space, because I didn't have pets until I got married. I had pets since I was a kid until I got married. And I definitely finding now that we're ready to move, how much that has accumulated in various spots. As often as we clean, it still tends to pile up on things in places you wouldn't know. It's like,
It also depends on what is the size of the item.
For me, it's the Hasbro 3 3/4 line.
Oh, okay. Yeah, 'cause like I said before, I have a little bit of OCD, so I'll take action figures and put them in a star case and put them inside of another display case. Again, I have a little bit of OCD. Yes.
What about one scale?
In terms of dust protection or just in terms of
Well, it's funny that you bring that up. A friend of mine does have a life-size Vader and a life-size ball, and he just got a life-size Boba Fett. And he's constantly complaining to me about the dust getting on these things. There are multiple ways you can go with this. One thing I've suggested to him is simple plywood. You make, what I have said is do a plywood bag. Okay? You take the two sides and have them come out halfway from the back piece of plywood. Right? And then, now this is where it might get a little pricey. You can get acrylic at Lowe's or Home Depot. And if you build a wooden frame, the acrylic doesn't need to be this thick. You can get the thinnest acrylic they have. But if you finish off the rest of the case, the front and the other half of the sides, as just a frame, even if it's in plywood, you can use acrylic from the inside, just have the front as a door. And that could build a little pedestal out of plywood again, trying to keep the costs down. But then get creative. Use the slide that showed the architectural designs. You have the lighting, like you would see on the Star Destroyers or on the bridge of the Death Star, that oval lighting. You can router that in your plywood. You can throw some LEDs behind that and have it actually pop out and stick out. There are a lot of different ideas you can come up with that. Any way you slice it, a one-on-one piece or one-to-one piece is going to cost a little bit more to cover and to display properly than mostly anything else in the collection. But you just got to be creative and go after it. Not to give a plug to anybody in particular, but if you go to rebelscum.com and go to the collector's collections, you can get a lot of ideas from there as well. Any other questions?